Welcome to the Why Music podcast, where we talk to independent artists about their journeys, the inspirations behind their music, and ultimately why they make music. This artist is a rocker that was born and raised in Ecuador. Never tying himself down to just one genre, he's explored various styles and made videos to go along with them and tell a fuller story. You never know what you're going to get, which makes it all the more worth following along his journey. Welcome, Saadin.
Thank you so much, Ava. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
Why don't we kind of kick it off with why don't you just kind of tell me where your music journey kind of all began?
Ooh, so that one is difficult because it's like an origin story that has a massive pause in the middle and then continues for some reason. It's like, if this were a book or a movie, terrible reviews, no sense in the story. But basically, as a kid, I had an organ at home, and my two sisters were, they were good, at least in my eyes. They were really good at the organ, right? And so in my school, it was mandatory for kids to learn piano once they hit first grade. So I started learning a little piano, and I was excited about it. I just remember learning a lot in that phase. There was this teacher, her name was Oleona. I still stay in touch with her. She is the best. Um, but what happened later on is that I moved up to band once I got to middle school. And oh, my teacher there, I honestly have to thank all my teachers because they were super cool. Um, my teacher there started teaching me guitar a little bit during my recess times. And that was super cool to me because that was not part of the band program. That was not one of the instruments that was included there. Uh, and I convinced my mom to buy me a guitar for Christmas, which I actually still have in that closet back there. But then I just kind of left music for a few years, which was odd. If I had to do it as part of a school program, I would. But I lost a big interest in it until when I got to ninth grade. I remember, wait, ninth grade, 10th grade, one of the two. Uh, they made us pick between art and music. And ooh, I think it would have been equally cool if I chose art, but music definitely caught my attention more. Because one of the teachers came up and gave a big, like, inspirational speech about how when you turn down the volume on your TV, it's not the dialogue that you're missing, it's the music. And just that phrase resonated in my head so much. So I went into that class, and like halfway through the year, I was like, I need music in my life for the rest of my life. So, you know, um, the rest of my life from there has been, how do I keep music in my life? How do I keep on making stuff that excites me? How do I keep on making stuff that that surprises me? I try to surprise myself as much as I try to surprise everyone else.
That's awesome. So, at what point did it kind of go from you're playing piano, you're playing these instruments? When did it turn into you're writing these songs?
Ooh, I have to I have to thank my hormones and my emotions. Um, because I remember there was this girl I was very salty at, and that was my first song. Um, it was about a crush gone wrong in high school. And by the way, that you will notice that I am Ecuadorian whenever I try to pronounce "use." That's where my accent fails. But yeah, it was about a crush gone wrong in high school. It was a song called "My Mistakes," and it was something. Uh, and I got excited. I got a lot of attention for that song, especially at the time, because I was in school and I was like, whoa, like everyone in my high school has heard my song. And that was insane to me. Like, um, then I found out it was obviously because kids spread gossip. and they love that sort of stuff. But yeah, it blew my mind that I put my feelings onto a paper and people wanted to see what I had said or see what I had wrote, and listen to music I had made. So I kept on making more music. And I remember I found MuseScore. I discovered MuseScore, and I loved to just notate for every instrument and write for every instrument. And I remember my teacher would go like, "A piano can't do that." I was like, "Why not?" And I found out later when I went to music school. But uh, until then, I was just writing some really experimental stuff. It was less refined than what I do now, but it was very important to get to where I am now.
I mean, it's all really just pieces to the puzzle. It's just a matter of when that puzzle's actually finished.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. In fact, I'm working on a song right now that uses a riff I wrote when I was 17. And that riff is like, it's phenomenal. I wish I had my piano in here. I decided to move it to another room. But oh man, I would totally show you. But I had this phenomenal riff that was in a song that I thought was lousy even at the time. And I struggled to find a song for it for years and years. And I think I finally found it.
It's crazy how, because I think I've done the same thing with lyrics where it's like something that I wrote forever ago. It's like 95% of this sucks, but like this one piece is good and I don't want to throw it away just because it has that one piece in it. So we just kind of have to repurpose it into something else and then you might get something a lot better.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So at what point with the writing songs and everything, like I know you said like when you first wrote that song, the attention that it got kind of pushed you to write more. When was it something that you were like light bulb went off in your head, like this is something that I can do for real, like as an artist?
Um, so a good chunk of it has been existential panic, if I'm being honest. Some of it's genuinely like most of it is genuine. I do have to say that most of it is genuinely, I just want to do this, and it's my
Mhm.
passion, and it's what I love to do. Uh, I I love to produce a song. I love to put ideas on paper and then lay down instruments to it and listen to how it sounds once you polish it more. And yeah, I kept on finding more free software throughout high school. Like I found Reaper, which I could download for free, and that was my first DAW. And I started laying down tracks. And freshman year of college, I got myself a really it's not crappy, it's good, but for the purpose of making music, it's not the best. I got myself a Blue Snowball mic. Um, so I would connect it through a USB. And what I figured out that I could do through my computer, because I didn't have an audio interface, is I had this little it was like a mini amp for my speaker with a headphone jack. So what I would do is I would attach that headphone jack into the mini speaker, and then I would send it into the microphone jack on my computer, and that's how I would record guitar. Um, and yeah, lately of course, I just graduated from the University of Miami with a degree in production, so I don't do that anymore, which is a good thing. Um, but it all started from just experimenting and just seeing what I could do. I wrote a lot of songs and I sent out a lot of songs, which I look back at and I think like those weren't really very quality. But I always think, but I felt so excited in the moment and I wrote them. And in the moment, I was proud of them. And that pushed me to do the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, you can't expect the stuff that you're making now to be the same as the stuff as it was before. Because if it was, you're not growing, you're not getting anywhere. So you want the stuff that you made 4 years ago distinct in comparison to what you're making now, because that means it's growing and it's better. Like the stuff that I made, even like I released an album in 2020, I took it down because I want to remake it because it just wasn't production wise or really songwriting wise wasn't there. I can make it a lot better now
I know
because
what you
I've
mean.
grown,
I
you know?
totally know what you mean. Yeah, and actually, ironically, I'm also thinking of doing that to a 2020 album.
Yeah. I mean, and kind of back to your whole guitar recording thing, when I first started recording piano in high school, I had a I don't remember what kind of mic it was, but I placed it next to the keys with like the sound thing on top of it, which is not how you record piano. So live and you learn.
Yeah, you live and you learn.
Is there something that you think is where you take most of your inspiration from? Like, is there something that in like what inspires most of like your songwriting?
I cannot say that there is one thing. I can say that a recurring theme is definitely, oh my god, it's the hormones. I don't want to say it, but it's the hormones. Like, a lot of good material that I have comes out of just like romanticizing crushes I have, or a lot of times it's my brand is me on steroids. It's so my music is very genuine, right? And um, I always remember this book. It's this Vietnam book, um, but basically there's a character in it, and the narrator says this guy will tell you that he ate 1,000 portions of chicken, and it might not be true. It might very obviously not be true, but to him it felt like he ate 1,000 portions of chicken. And that's the same way it is to me, where yeah, some of the details in my music didn't necessarily happen, but it's a genuine feeling that they did. I totally forgot what the question was, or how I got into that. uh, I have ADD, like diagnosed ADD, and it shows sometimes. um yeah, just having conversations, I will branch out into a million different paths. I think it's a superpower for songwriting, but yeah, it makes me like trip on my own sentences a lot.
I think you kind of answered the question pretty much. Like it's I mean, do you pull a lot from like your like life experiences? Like is there a certain like what kind of thought process I guess happens where something occurs or you like have a thought and it's like I'm going to turn that into a song, or it's like what is the like what sets the light bulb off essentially of like this is song worthy, this isn't, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. So just to add on to that, yeah, a lot of times it's crushes, but other times I've definitely had songs that I definitely have numerous songs that are about other things, that are about change, and that are about, like, right now, this current song that I'm working on is about just struggling to eat in the real world because I graduated, right? And now I have a few more responsibilities than I did in college, to say the least. But um, yeah, so right now that's something I've been struggling with, and that's something I'm writing about. It's always something that's affecting me deeply, and I try to write genuinely. That's mainly what I try to do.
How do you approach taking that? Because, like you said, sometimes it is just kind of like the details aren't the same, but the emotion of the story is still there. How do you kind of take that thought or experience and turn it into like the song? Like, what kind of like starts that process?
Hmm. Okay, so songwriting process is never the same to me. It's kind of difficult. Sometimes I'll start with a bass line. Sometimes I'll start with a lyric. Um, and sometimes I'll just have something in my head, for this most recent song that I keep talking about. It's not the one I'm putting out, which, by the way, I am putting out a song on November 18th. But there's another song I'm working on right now, and I'm really in love with. It's incomplete, so I can't even show you now, but I can tell you a few lyrics from it. And what I was doing is I was just playing on a guitar, and I was frustrated one day. I had gone busking, right? Because I just cannot for the life of me find a job, which is weird because I also majored in computer science. But anyway, I went busking. I made a few dollars, and they were immediately canceled out because I went back to my car and found a ticket on my window. Um, so I was just outside playing with the guitar, and I found this bass line that went bum 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 bum, and I was like, oh, that sounds interesting, dun 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 dun, and I start clapping, and I'll start recording a little voice note, dun 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 dun. So it goes, the chord progression goes one, or I'll sing it up here because it's easier. It goes a one, and then it goes two. So, and then it just repeats between one and two. And I'm like, oh, this is fun. This is kind of fun. So, what am I feeling right now? And I come up with this phrase that I'm in love with right now. It's always romantic. It's always cinematic. It's always got to be. It's when did the stars get away? So when did the stars get away? And the annoying part for this song is that I haven't found a second line to match that one, because I just like that one so much, and it's like anything that I write after it is lame. That's what I've currently been working on, and that's how that one specifically started. There's other songs where I had a lyric and it just had to have something around it. There's this lyric I wrote in high school that was, time ruins everything except for true love. And I was like, whoa, that is so cool, and there are some lyrics that I look back and I say, like, I was an idiot. I was like 17 and I thought that was deep. And I don't think that for that lyric. I genuinely like that lyric. I think it's sweet, and I think it's romantic, and I think it's desperate and sad and happy all at the same time. It could be anything you want it to be. And again, I lost my train of thought. But oh yeah, because that one started with a lyric first, and then other times I'll Frankenstein the songs together. Like, well, I guess the one I'm making right now again is a Frankenstein, because I have the stars part, and then I have the little riff that I wrote in high school on the piano. And stuff like that, seeing what can fit together, what works to tell a story, what doesn't work to tell a story.
So I mean, it could start with, like you said, like the one started with a bass line, another one started with a lyric. It could be one way, it could be the other way, it could be anywhere in between.
Yeah. Oh, and the song I'm releasing on November 18th, it started I was quarantined. And if you want me to stop, by the way, in the interest of time, I can go on with anything
You're
forever.
good. You're good.
Yeah, so this song, I was at the piano, and yeah, I was quarantined because I got COVID like right before winter break. Literally had to cancel my flight back to Ecuador for that. And um yeah, I just found an interesting rhythm, and I just happened to be thinking about this girl who had been so important to me, but it didn't seem like she was because I hadn't had contact with her in like a year or two. And, I thought she might as well have forgotten my name. And that's where the title of the song came from, which is Forgot My Name. And so, yeah, that's just a few examples of how some songs by me have started.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the same way. It's never one set way of approach. It's tricky then because it's like, oh, I want to write something, and it's like if you don't have an idea and you don't have any sort of like song structure as to how you write, you're kind of SOL then. Um, how would you describe your music for somebody who's never heard it?
Oh, that's that's
Tricky
definitely a
one.
difficult question to ask. Um, Especially for someone who has not stuck with a genre. Because I have written the most accurate and broad thing that I could say is just rock, right? Because um, that's a broad umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Metallica is rock, Talking Heads is rock, Dire Straits is rock, and those are all like very different bands.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I guess something I've struggled with is finding what they call your sound, right? Because I feel like they demand to have a sound from certain artists. And I guess there are a few Saadin isms, if you will, but I don't think I ever stick to one sound exactly because I've done Latin rock. You know, I have a song in Spanish that's in the oven right now, and I'm producing it. Uh, and it's very much merengue inspired. It's got rock in it, but it's heavily influenced by the genre they call tropipop, which it's very much Latin '90s party music. Because I grew up listening to that at
Mm-hmm.
weddings, at parties, at everything they had down there. It's super cool, like Juan Luis Guerra, Olga Tañón, that sort of stuff. And they're not artists that I would consider rock artists, but they influence me. You know, my upbringing around such an international setting also just massively boosted all the exposure that I had to music because I lived in Ecuador, right? Where obviously we had Ecuadorian culture. My mom is Colombian, my dad is Lebanese, and I went to an American school. So uh, that's a lot of cultures in just one place, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm so thankful for that. But I've yeah, I've mostly stuck to rock. If there's something in common with most of my songs is that there are fuzzy guitars and 90s of them, not 90% of them, and it's very experimental. I uh it edges closer to pop, but sometimes I'll do something weird. I'll stick something weird in there. I I bought a pan flute. I bought a genuine Ecuadorian pan flute a couple of years ago because I wrote a part for pan flute in one of my songs, and I write mostly in English, right? I've like one or two songs in Spanish out of like 100, and you can thank my American school for that. uh, but I went out and I bought this pan flute, and I was like, this is the worst. This is the worst inversion I could have ever made because it was expensive. At the time, it was definitely expensive. Um, and I went out into this like crazy part of town, and I spent like an entire day trying to get this thing all for one-time use, or what I thought was a one-time use. And then, you know, just a few weeks ago, I was wrapping up production on this new song I'm putting out, and I was like, I was thinking a lot about that Stones album, that Rolling Stones album, the very experimental one. Um, I think it's called Her Satanic Majesty's Request or Their Satanic Majesty's Request, something like that. But it's very weird. It's super cool. It's absolutely cool, and it's very weird. And I was like, the A part of my song sounds totally poppy and gospel and friendly. Oh, and that's a common element in most of my songs. I love writing for choirs. I love writing for voices. So you will probably find that in a lot of my songs. But anyway, I thought the B part wasn't looking so good. And I was like, what could be a little crazier of a sound here? Because I tried to go for that Rolling Stones thing and I didn't really nail it. So I try to look at virtual instruments because I learned how to use them, and I am like, these cost a bunch, these will take forever to download. That's gonna suck. I'm not gonna do that. So I walk into my closet and just like search through my things and I find the pan flute. And I'm like, and to think that I wanted to sell you on eBay. So I pull it out and I start doing weird stuff. Because if you look at that Stones album, I took a lot of production cues from it, and a lot of what they have is winds and just flutes going crazy and doing weird harmonics. And luckily, the pan flute is easy. I don't know what the I was going to call it the real flute, but I guess they're both real flutes. I don't know what the normal flute is like, but the pan flute's super easy. You just like tilt it a little bit and blow a little bit harder, and you got your harmonics and your crazy sounds. And because of the texture, because of the wood, it just sounds like it sounds weirder. It sounds like you're not used to that in rock. And I've heard exactly two rock songs with a pan flute, and uh, now it's three because mine is one of them. But um, yeah, I guess four because I have it in two songs, but I'm gonna save the funky math for later. Um, the point is I do weird things. I do whatever I feel in the moment. Describing my music to a newcomer is just difficult. I would say that it's heartfelt. I would say that it's romantic. I would say that it's cinematic. Uh, I I wouldn't start to describe by comparing myself to other artists because I'm always stealing a little bit from here and there and finding, oh, I like that sound in like a merengue song, or I like that sound in this gospel tune I found.
I mean, we can expect some common elements though. You listed fuzzy guitars, gospel, and then now you got your pan flute.
Oh yeah, but it's just been in two songs to be fair. It's not always there, but yeah, a thick choir. I love a thick choir, which is annoying to mix with the rest of a band.
Do you have a song that you've put out, or even the one that you have coming out in November? Is there a song that you would say kind of embodies most of your work? Like if you had one song and one song only to show somebody to kind of sell them on you as an artist, do you know what that song would be?
Ooh, um, that's also a difficult question. You ask great questions though. The difficult ones are honestly they're the ones that get me talking. They're the ones that will get anyone talking, and they're the cool ones because I'm gonna go into that answer. I'm gonna like really explore it. So I would say if I wanted to sell myself right now to someone, I would show them the last song I put out because that's where I really kicked it up a notch in production. That's where I really like got super confident with myself and I started messing around on the computer and doing things. The song is called Tomorrow, and I released it. Darn, when did I release it? I released it this year. I released it earlier this year. That's as accurate as you will get from me right now. But not only that, but I actually animated an entire music video for it by hand. Well, sort of by hand. I did it on a tablet with one of those pencils, and I did it on animation software, but I didn't use any of the cheats or interpolations. I did it as naturally as I could just to because I thought it was cool. I saw some old animation that required for you to do that before all this technology existed, and I was like, there's something cool about that animation. Like we should do that. Um, but in terms of music, what happened is I got into a few film festivals, and one of my teachers, his name is Dan Strange, and he's the coolest guy ever. He he came up to me, he saw the video, and then he listened to the song, and he says, Saadin, the animation is up here and the production of the song is down here. And I take a listen to the song and I'm like, yeah, I see what you mean. So I start messing around with it more and I make it my project that semester just to turn that song into what it can be. And I happen to be at that time in a synthesizer class, so I start programming my own synthesizers for the song. Um, I've got actually a super old synthesizer, a DX7 in the back, so I use a little of those sounds for it. It was great, and my sound until that point was very 80s. It was very 80s, and I think I did a good job of keeping that sound. Uh, with this next release, it's a bit of an overhaul. Um, I wouldn't say that I'm getting rid of absolutely everything that I've done before, but it relies less on the new wave sound of the 80s. I forgot the question again. Oh my god, I'm on fire.
No, I think you answered it. So, a question that I like to throw in that's just kind of a little bit of a change of pace from the other questions is if you could open for any artist, who would it be?
Ooh, I guess that's not too hard of one. Because Liz Cooper is really cool. Uh, yeah, Liz Cooper and the Stampede. I found them in 2019, and whoa, like I just that album they put out just resonated with me, and it still does. So if I could open for them, real thing, anytime, I would absolutely do it. If we're talking any artist, even if it's impossible, there's a few more that I would definitely mention. Queen. I'd love to open for Queen. And there's this band called Soda Stereo from Argentina who I love them. They rock in Latin America was huge in the 70s and 80s. And some really good stuff came out of there. It's due to some really awful circumstances. I actually studied the history behind it in college, but um, some really good rock music was made, and some excellent writers were born.
I have not heard of them. I might have to check them out now.
Yeah, I'll send links.
Okay. Um, what is it that you think sets you apart from other independent artists? Like what is it that like makes you stand out from the crowd essentially? Like what is it about you and your artistry or your music that kind of sets you apart?
I think it's difficult to describe. Part of it is that I just can't seem to find a sound. uh, that's definitely a part of it. I think I focus a lot on my lyrics, and it's this Argentine rock thing that I'm talking about, where I think there's a certain perfection that you need to your lyrics, and there's a certain balance that you need to it, where it can't sound like old English, but it can't sound dumb either. It's got to hit that perfect balance. And there's that, along um with the fact that words are rhythmic, sentences are rhythmic, and if you put a sentence in the wrong place, people are going to notice it and something's going to be off. Like this example that also resonates in my head is uh you have you heard of the Ben Platt? I forget the name of this play, but it's about this kid
Dear
who
Evan Hansen?
Dear Evan Hansen. That's right. So iconic song. I've learned to slam on the brakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that sentence has a rhythm to it.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned to slam on the brakes. Na 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 na. Right? If you say I've learned to slam on the brakes.
It's where the emphasis is at, is what
That's
really
all.
makes the difference.
Oh no. Wait, sorry, the connection just got cut for like a tiny bit. I don't know if I'm back yet.
I see you.
I hear you. Okay, cool, cool. You're just frozen, but it's fine. We'll go on. Um, there's that. There's personally how I present myself. It's during my time at music school, I saw a lot of independent artists, and obviously, I don't want to point out any names, but when you did something different, they would kind of discourage that. Um, Something that I do a lot is I dress a little preppy because I grew up around people who dress preppy. But I also dress a little outside of the stereotypical like male the stereotype, you know, the where it's like I'm gonna dress in dark colors and I'm gonna be like Batman visually. Yeah, it's like, no, I like bright saturated colors, and you can see that a lot in my videos too. I love wearing a bunch of pink. Um, I lately I'm into red a lot. So, you know, even visually, I think my brand's a little bit distinct uh, because I think of the whole picture, right? And sometimes it's my downfall too. I will say that because there is so much in it to manage for just one artist. And you know, I'm managing videos, I'm managing websites. You know, I know how to code, so I will code my own websites. Uh, I will I will try to micromanage marketing campaigns that I'm doing, even though I try to outsource those to other people. Um, I I want to make sure there's a consistency throughout everything that I'm doing, so that there has to be this sort of mark that I leave, whether you're seeing a pamphlet for a Saadin Dassum show, or whether you see my albums, or whether you just hear my song. You know, there's got to be something there that marks it as mine. In terms of audio, it could be my voice. In terms of visuals, it could be my logo. There's just some consistency.
I mean, that's ultimately what a brand is. That's kind of what takes you from, okay, you're putting out music to, okay, you're really an artist. So, I mean, I think you're a step ahead of a big chunk of people just by kind of having your shit together in that area. Um, what kind of impact do you want, like, the things you're doing and like the music you're making? What kind of impact do you want that to have on the people that hear it and like know you as an artist?
Ooh, I want I like this quote by David Grohl. Um, I don't know if it's Grohl or Grohl. I've always said Grohl, but I've heard Grohl. But I like this quote by him that says, "You sing a song to 1,000 people, and they'll sing it back to you for 1,000 different reasons." And that's something I firmly believe in. I believe in what's called the death of the author, where I put out something, I felt something, and I will talk about it forever. And I will say, this is why I wrote the song. But if it feels like something else to someone, I'm not going to take that away. That makes me so happy. There's this drummer I work with who's the best. He's one of my best friends in the world. His name is Chandler, and he he heard this song that I wrote about an identity crisis, and he was like, "It's a breakup song, right?" And I was like, "Yes, it is, Chandler." I told him later that that it's not what I had put in my mind when I wrote it, but that when it resonates, when it speaks to people, it speaks to people. And it may be for whatever reason completely different to the reason you wrote it, but it's beautiful to hear other interpretations of it. And ultimately the impact that I want to have is I want to make people feel like they're not alone, because that's something I've struggled with And it's weird, right? I have a family that loves me. I have friends who love me, but I still manage to feel alone sometimes, and it's a massive problem. So if I can make people feel less alone through music, if I can also impact someone, that would be nice. Yeah, and unity is just something excellent that I strive for.
I mean, yeah, I mean, like you said, like and you can even see it like if you look up the meaning behind even like big songs, like if you like looked up meaning behind like Someone Like You or like Secrets by One Republic, you look up those songs and it's like, what's the meaning? Then it's these little forums. It's like, this is the answer. This is the answer. This is the answer. It could be none of those things. It could be one of those things, but everybody kind of interprets the music they hear differently because you hear it filtered through like your own lens. Like you're not living the exact same experiences as the artist is, but you can still kind of relate that to your own being and your own like life.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So I think that kind of just leaves us with the one big question that kind of prompted the podcast in the first place, which is why music? Like, why is that where you're pursuing or what you're pursuing? I know you kind of touched on it in the beginning when we talked about your journey, but why music?
Mm. So I don't think I've actually hit that completely well first.
Okay.
No, I don't think I think I've definitely mentioned a little bit of the journey to it, but it's it's not too long ago that I sat down and I thought of it, and I thought, why is it that this brings me so much joy and that I'm so happy doing this and playing these notes and uh, making my fingers hurt on a fretboard after playing for hours. And I guess it's a sense of freedom. It's a sense of liberty that I don't always feel like I have in the real world. At my parents, I love them and I love them to death, but they were super strict and they grew up with certain ideas in their head of what a boy should do and what a boy should be. And it's like, I don't know. I want to dress in pink and in funny colors, and I want to, I'm a guy. I'm a straight guy, but I don't want to adhere to the ideas of like a straight guy is supposed to be doing this, and I don't feel like I can express that a lot in the real world. Sometimes now I can. Now I do it. Now I'm even cocky about it, but before it was like I was trapped, and sometimes I felt like I wasn't even allowed to feel certain things. And I didn't even know if I felt certain things because I thought like, men aren't supposed to cry. I'm not supposed to feel sad. I'm supposed to feel angry. So what happens when I put my pen to the paper is I write some sad lyrics and I'm not punished for it. I make something pretty out of it, and or I make something ugly out of it. I can also make something ugly out of it, and that'll be great too. It's a place where I'm just free. I'm just absolutely free to be myself and to express myself, and it's okay. The paper is my friend who I can tell everything to.
I think that's extremely well said. I've never really thought about it with the like freedom perspective, but it really is. It's like you can kind of channel anything and everything that was going on outside of that into this one thing and then put it out and then people can actually like connect with it. Like that's crazy to me. Still. It's a
It,
crazy thing.
it's a little bit mind blowing. It's a gift. Music is a gift to humanity.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think that concludes this episode of the Why Music podcast. We'll be back again next Tuesday with a new artist and a new conversation. Thanks for listening.